Leader of Tibet is in the United States to recognize an international celebration of his country. He's been accompanied by film star Richard Gere, who has for years devoted himself to the Dalai's cause. Mr. Gere joins us tonight along with Lodi Gowrie, director of the International Campaign for Tibet. Welcome. Good to have both of you.
Thanks.
We shift from American politics to international politics and human rights. What did the Dalai Lama hope to accomplish here, and did he accomplish that?
His Holiness is here this trip, but mainly the invitation of Richard here to participate in a major teaching, the Kala Chakra teaching, which he has conducted. In fact, this is the 15th time he has done it. It's mainly for world peace. But then at the same time, His Holiness is also the leader of the 6 million Tibetans. Mm-hmm. And he has been, as he calls himself, the free spokesperson of his nation, which, as you know, has been under Chinese occupation since 1949. Right. So obviously, wherever His Holiness goes, the cause of Tibet goes. So as a spokesperson for his people, he also has a message to the world, to the United States.
A couple of specifics, is he asking on us to go back to Tibet? And are the Chinese likely to do that, to allow him to go back to Tibet?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question, because I think it is a little misunderstood. His Holiness has announced 2 days back at Yale that he would like to make a trip, not a return. The return is a word which the Chinese use, back to Tibet after 32 years for 2 major reasons. One is that His Holiness is becoming very much worried that his own people, the Tibetan people who have followed a non-violent struggle, are becoming very impatient for a number of reasons. One, all the gestures that His Holiness has made to the Chinese government for the last several years has been turned down by the Chinese. And this definitely agitates Tibetan people. And the young Tibetans are starting to ask this question, whether the path that we have followed is right, whether, or not we should think of some other alternate way to struggle for our freedom. And this worries His Holiness, because he is a man who is totally committed to nonviolence. Secondly, because of this major demographic invasion in Tibet, we are today becoming minority. We are already minority. This worries His Holiness very much, and this is also agitating a lot of the Tibetans. So therefore, he would like to make a trip, mainly a peace trip, because in fact he wants to go to once again advise his people to have more patience and not to depart from the non-violent path.
Just to amplify a little bit, what Lodi was saying, this population transfer is probably one of the scariest aspects of this occupation, which
7 million Chinese who've come into Tibet?
Well, they're subsidized settlers is what they are. And they have in fact taken all the key positions in the country. The Tibetans find themselves a minority now. Over the last 40 years, over 1,200,000 Tibetans have been killed. It really is an extraordinary situation.
How do you feel about the response of the Bush administration?
Well, the recent meeting, I think, was extraordinary.
What happened?
They met. It was as simple as that. It was the first Western leader to actually meet officially the Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama. And therefore, it sent a message to the Chinese that your pressure is not enough. Our interest in good relations between the United States and China is not enough to prevent us from a public acceptance of the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, it's a first step.
And so, therefore, what do you think it might lead to?
Well, I think eventually, we could talk about these things. I believe that there should be, in fact, a retrieval of most favored nation status. I don't think there's any question about that.
Use that as a wedge to force Tibet independence.
Absolutely. Tie it to human rights abuses. Tie it to slave camps. We have products that are coming to this country that are made in slave camps, forced labor camps in China and Tibet. Toys. If you see toys that have made in China on them, it's likely they were made in these forced labor camps.
You've been to India and spent a month with the Dalai Lama.
Well, many times. Over the last 12 years, we've spent a lot of time together.
How did you come to this?
Oh, God. Well, an interest in Buddhism that goes way back, when I was in college or before. I had been a practicing Buddhist, but it was with the Japanese, before I met His Holiness in Dharamsala.
That's in India, where in the foothills of the Himalayas, where he is now, with the exiled
Tibetans. They've been there since 1959, when there was an unsuccessful uprising against the Chinese. Yeah. And about 100,000, 120,000 Tibetans have gotten out, and their main headquarters is in Dharamsala.
But go ahead, tell me your own evolution. But I
know it's a long story. It's kind of religious.
But give us a sense
story
of it, though. I mean, your sense of how you went from being a Buddhist to influenced by him to this commitment.
Well, I tell you, there are two stories that go on in my life. One is a spiritual quest, which everyone is on some kind of a quest.
Sure.
No matter what their religion is or non-religion, whatever, everyone is looking for some happiness and to make some sense of how things work. The other was a certain political maturation as well. And I had been working a lot on issues of El Salvador and Nicaragua. When I became closer to the Tibetans and became more engaged in the political aspect of what's been going on there and outraged, I started to use the tools that I had learned in El Salvador and Nicaragua, which was a similar problem. You know, a very strong administration and State Department reaction,
Right.
you know, in El Salvador and Nicaragua and around the world. And to use those same tools for the Tibetans was very natural.
And have they been successful? I mean, you created also Tibet House.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does that do?
Well, Tibet House was created as a cultural educational group, but it was a power base, really, to do all kinds of work for the Tibetans and about the Tibetans, you know, whether it was religious or cultural, but we do political work. Even to speak the name Tibet is a political statement.
Certainly for the Chinese, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not too happy with what we do at all.
And you know why. I did read that the Dalai Lama may be willing to, which seems to be a modification of his point of view, accept an independent Tibet that's under the influence or somehow has a relationship with China. Is that a change in his position? Is that something that he might...
Well, it was something that he did actually approach years ago, and it has changed recently, so Lodi will tell you about this.
Moving back to there?
Well, I wouldn't say he's moving back or forth, but basically I think the whole concept of, you know, nation relation, you know, is changing so much, because I personally get very confused with the whole definition of sovereignty, because particularly after the changes in Soviet Union. But most important is that His Holiness again stated even this morning with a number of people that he met, is the wish of the Tibetan people. First of all, His Holiness always wanted to make it very clear that Tibet has been an independent nation for thousands of years. In fact, our civilization is as old as the Chinese civilization, according to the findings of the Chinese archaeological people themselves. Secondly, you'll not find a single Tibetan who does want it to be under Chinese rule. Not a single Tibetan. Even those Tibetans who are ideological communist. There are some Tibetans who are ideological communist, but even those Tibetans
are nationalists.
Are nationalists. They want it to be free.
Right.
So these are two important factors.
They're sort of Yugoslavian.
But at the same time, a few years back, to be very specific, in 1988, His Holiness came out with a very reasonable proposal. He came out with those proposals because he was worried, not only worried, he was, in fact, you know, I think...
He wanted to make a breakthrough.
Yes, so that he made major concessions if the Chinese were willing to negotiate. But unfortunately, the Chinese totally failed to respond.
See, they feel time is on their side here. That's really what they're working.
And their sense of time is much longer than most people's sense of time.
They're very clever. You know, even in the Geneva Convention, a simple thing to us like a population transfer is, I believe they call it a Class C genocide. They're very aware of the power of a population transfer. Just simply that, how you can destroy a culture in 2 generations. And this is aside from the fact of forced abortions and the slave labor camps, forced sterilization.
In violation of all human rights.
Absolutely. Yeah. But even a simple thing like population transfer, how clever they are. If they can hold on for another generation, it's really over.
But do you believe that?
That they can do it?
Yeah. No. Do you believe, or do you believe that if in fact they can hold on for another generation, that will do it? That somehow, because we thought that might be true.
That's true.
In the Soviet Union,
they're
and
incredibly resilient people,
and that spirit of freedom and that sense of not to be subjugated lived even though the dictatorship.
Yes, we certainly do.
The barrel of the gun. Go ahead.
Wonderful story was told to me by Professor Thurman, actually, the other night.
Who is Professor Thurman?
Professor Thurman is one of my partners in Tibet House and one of the major authorities in Tibetan Buddhism here from Columbia University. And he's been to Tibet a few times in recent years. And he said, look, as soon as in the late 70s, when things were loosening up a bit in Tibet, and this is going into 3 generations of occupation, brutal occupation, struggle sessions and the whole thing, re-indoctrination, they gave the people a little freedom. And as soon as they had their little freedom, they started rebuilding monasteries that had been destroyed.
Yes.
Every penny and every ounce of energy they had, rebuilding their culture.
But that speaks volumes to the point
true.
that time, it may not be on their side, because you can never extinguish that, and it will be passed from generation to generation. The Dalai Lama, give me some sense of him, I mean, both of you, because he is a figure that is known, mystical to some.
Well, I think he's unique, and probably that's what makes it very hard to understand who he is, what he is. He's a man, he's a figure from another century. And because he's a statesman, he is a great scholar, and he is a priest. We don't have that in our time. Our governments are not peopled by creatures who have those kind of qualifications.
And Tibet was a theocracy.
A form of it. You know, it's technically, I don't know what you call
I think
it.
It was a theocracy.
Here is a person...
Well, he was head of state and head
That's right, yes. You see, but, you know, when you apply Western terminologies to describe, you know, Asian situation, it's always misleading, to be very frank, you see. So therefore... But anyway, to come back about his...
It's one of the problems we in America have always had, in a sense, is understanding the other
for example, like the whole
and putting our own definition with respect to other cultures.
History of Tibet. You see, the Chinese suzerainty, sovereignty, everything, I think, got in fact confused because of application of Western terminologies, you know, to a particular Asian situation. Our relation with China, the relations of... In fact, you know, China herself, you know, never... You know, I'm talking about the Chinese, you know, themselves have never even had a strong political influence over Tibet. Yes, the Manchus who ruled China, the Mongols who ruled China, yes, definitely we had a very special relations with the Manchus, particularly with the Mongols. And in fact, it's very peculiar. You know, our Chinese friends have a very strange logic. They're claiming Tibet. To give you example is, you know, yes, tomorrow if, you know, Canada starts claiming Australia to be part of Canada, because at one time both Canada and Australia were colonies of the British Empire.
Why?
So this is the logic, you know, the Chinese apply. But to talk about His Holiness, I think here's one person who represents what is this ancient civilization, what is Tibet.
And chosen when he was 2 years old.
When he was
2 years old?
3.
Discovered.
2 or 3.
Discovered, not chosen, yes.
Discovered by whom?
Well, a search party.
Yes, by search party. Well,
and they found him in a village somewhere.
That's right, yes.
And said...
Very small farming village in the Amdo region, which has now been totally overrun by the Chinese.
Yes, that whole region, in fact, where His Holiness, you know, comes from, today has been incorporated, is not in fact called Tibet anymore, it's called the Qinghai. You know, the Chinese called it Qinghai, and is now... That's one area where the Tibetans are totally outnumbered by the Chinese.
Why is it so important to the Chinese? Why they make a big issue of this? Why do they need Tibet? What does it mean to them?
I think, you know, a number of reasons, different, you know.
Because the world opinion is totally against them, even the Soviet Union.
Yes, definitely. I think Tibet will become what the Baltics were, you know, to the Soviets.
Yeah, that's true.
And in fact, you know, I had the honor of being with His Holiness and the 3 Baltic nations just last week. And it was both inspiring and a memorable visit, you know. And so I think, you know, what, you know, Tibet today is, you know, is exactly what the Baltics were to this to the Soviets. But to come back, I think the Chinese, and the beginning, from the very beginning, you know, China, the present Chinese leaders, you know, had expansionist dreams. So therefore, I think Tibet, because of its very strategic location, because Tibet is not only the roof of the world, but is the heart of Asia.
It's always separated 3 great civilizations. You know, really is commands the Himalayan plateaus, and it's always separated the Russian Empire, whatever incarnation that was, the Chinese Empire, whatever part that was, and the subcontinent of India. That area, and it separated them. I mean, it's a very clever and powerful position that it has always held until 1949. It balanced all these forces.
Precisely, yes. And in fact, His Holiness, when he, you know, came forth with the 5-point peace formula in 1987, remember when he was here in the United States? You see, his whole vision of His Holiness to create Tibet into a zone of ahimsa, which is by, I think again by mistake called as zone of peace, but His Holiness actually means much more than just peace. So now this also, when His Holiness comes with this idea, he's not doing it selfishly as a Tibetan. In fact, when he has a vision, he feels that Tibet can contribute and bring
Tibet
in
has
stability.
a unique contribution it can make.
Yes, definitely. You see,
He
both,
also is
from
interested in
China to
medicine a
India.
lot, is he not? He's interested in medicine,
He
particularly
is
and
a
science.
great,
and he visits.
yes, he has been greatly promoting the Tibetan medicine. For
Right.
instance, his whole mission is to give to his people, give to the world, share everything that he
Which
has.
is what you feel immediately when you're in
Yes.
the presence of him.
So therefore, Tibetan medicine is one that he feels he
Feels
can
what?
give.
Tell me what you feel. What is it that?
You feel you're in the presence of someone who wants nothing more than your happiness. For one of those few times in your life,
And it makes you.
they want nothing from you at all. It's all give. I've never been asked for anything. How many times, how many people have you ever met that had no agenda other than for you to be happy? Even your wife. Sometimes you're
not so sure. Yeah. And he made you feel that.
Yeah, he makes
That I want
everyone feel
nothing
that.
from you, but I want to give. I just want to see you happy.
Yeah.
And has it brought you a level of happiness and
Well, I
peace
mean, any kind
and
of
involvement?
Yeah, I think any kind of religious training,
Yeah.
any kind of true philosophical training will bring that to you. There are very specific, powerful techniques involved with Buddhism and specifically Tibetan Buddhism that certainly can help alleviate a lot of suffering.
Thanks for joining us. Good
Thanks
to
for
have you.
having us here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I got to say hello to my mom, by the way, because
Where?
I just left dinner with my mother and my father. So,
Well,
Mom and Dad, hi.
He'll be back for dessert, maybe. Thank you very much. And we will be back as well. Thank you for joining us.